Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Chase at Rocky Mountain. Thanks for checking into our YouTube channel. I'm here with TJ Bronson from 891 Suspension, and he and I like to geek out and just talk about suspension all day long. So we thought, you know what? Let's do a cool little video today, and the title of this is, how do you know if you need to get your suspension revalved? Now, TJ, I know you're biased, because obviously you're a suspension guy, but let's talk about this though. And the first question is, does everybody need to get their suspension revalved? And because stock bikes nowadays are really good.
Yes.
And they're good for a lot of riders. So my opinion is, if you're happy on the bike, if it's comfortable to you, maybe not stress about it too much, but what would be your counter argument to that?
My counter argument is how aggressive are you on the bike?
Okay.
And how often are you riding? Are you racing? You know, those would be my three top questions.
Yeah.
That would kind of steer us one way or the other. Because you are right, the stock bikes coming out nowadays are awesome. There's a lot of R&D done into the chassis and the suspension to make it, again, usable for a lot of people. And we can make the stock stuff work for a while.
Okay, so if somebody gets a stock bike and they're riding it and they're like, well, it feels pretty good, what would you say are some indicators for that rider to say, okay, like maybe I do need to get it revalved? So like, if they're going too far in, too far out on clickers, if they can't get comfortable, like what are some signs that maybe you want to look for?
Yeah, those are perfect examples there. If it's the characteristics that you want in the bike to make you comfortable as a rider, to give you safety, number one.
Yeah.
The second one on top of that is, can you be more aggressive on the bike and make the bike do what you want it to do? If we can't achieve that with where we're at stock-wise, it's a really good idea to get it evaluated for you, get it revalved.
Yeah. And it is important for the viewers to know that when you buy a motorcycle, it's really hard for these OEMs to find a good window, because they're trying to cater to a really fast guy, a beginner, a novice rider, because it's got to be soft enough that it's not too stiff and harsh. But they're trying to make it race ready. That's a KTM slogan, but they're trying to make it to where you can actually go out and ride at a high level. And it's so, just think about it that way. It's like you're trying to ride a motorcycle that was catered for all different types of riders. So TJ, when you go in and do a revalve and people hear the word revalve and they're like, well, what does that really mean? What is a revalve? What are you guys doing in there?
So in a revalve, you've got pistons in there. You have a compression piston and a rebound piston on both front and rear. From there, there's shims that are stacked on top of it. The shims are like your on-off faucet on a hose or your sink at home. The more you open it, the faster the oil flows. So the more these shims move, the faster oil flows in and out of the fork. So when we talk about a revalve, we go in and we take the stock stuff off, the stock shim stack off, and we put your custom tuned shim stack on to control this oil that's moving in and out of cartridges to make the bike react a certain way for you.
Right.
We can go stiffer, we can go softer, we can go for trails, we can go for moto, dunes, all of that comes into play.
So TJ, with that information, I guess a question I have is, what are the biggest shortcomings of stock suspension on any motorcycle?
A lot of it depends on the rider and where we're riding at. You take a motocross bike, yourself for instance, if we were to take this bike and go try to ride American Fork, Tibble Fork, anywhere that's technically considered off-road riding.
These are like single track trails.
Single track, yes. This bike's not gonna react the way you want it to.
Right.
So even in its stock form, this bike is made for motocross. And the same goes for if we take a trail bike, a desert bike, and bring it onto a motocross track, it's gonna be too soft now.
Okay.
It's even if it's in its stock form. It's designed for a certain style, discipline of riding. So in a shortcoming is, yes, it fits a broad range of people, but it doesn't fit a broad range of riding per se. When you have a competition bike, it's meant for competition.
And what's nice too is that if you do a blend of all different types of riding, you can go through and tailor it to maybe it's soft enough initially for off-road, trail riding, but you get more that mid and bottom end resistance for maybe when you do want to come out and have a track day, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get you within a window. Again, it's not gonna be perfect.
Sure.
But it'll suit a little more wider range of riding for
Okay.
you.
How would you go about, deciding, because there's so many suspension companies out nowadays, it's kind of hard to be like, well, is he good? You can ask other friends and stuff, but what would you, give advice to somebody who's maybe over on the East Coast? It's like, where the heck should I take my suspension to get it redone?
There's tons of guys out there. The first and foremost is, if you're at the track, find a guy that's at the track. Second, does he have a good reputation?
Okay.
Is he a good person? Is he going to take care of you? Through throughout your relationship with them. Those would be the two biggest factors in my eyes. The next would be, again, proximity. It all plays a role. You don't want to be shipping it clear across the country, have a bike down for days, weeks. Can they get it turned around to you in a fast enough time?
Okay. A lot of riders, they take their suspension off, they send it off to get it revalved, they get it back, but then just due to hassle, they don't want to pull everything off again to send it back. It's expensive to ship it, so they just never change anything.
And we do it often. Even when you're due for service, every 20, 30 hours, like we said, we ask you questions. How's the bike feeling? Is it doing what you want it to do? That's an opportune time for us to update your setting softer, stiffer, and make it better. It's never perfect. There's always room for improvement.
The goal is to get it right the first time,
yes,
but there's always room for improvement. So that is something to remember. So if you're wondering, if you have a stock bike right now, and also if you bought a used bike, this brings me to another point. Don't just assume and think, oh, it's got suspension work done, it's gonna be awesome. Like, that is not the case. That person had that bike set up for them. And it's no different than getting on a stock bike. So if you buy it used, ask them, who did the suspension if there's no stickers? What spring rates are in the bike? How did they have the valving set up? What type of riding? What is their skill level? Those are questions you should be asking if you bought a used bike that has suspension work done. So a couple things you just do want to keep in mind, but hopefully this video is just kind of as a guide to help you decide, should you get your suspension revalved? Is it worth it to you? It's not cheap, but it's a huge resource. You get your bike working as best as possible, and you always have somebody there to help you out.
I agree 100%. And coming from my racing background, suspension was always the first thing we ever did. Over motor, over tires, over
pipe,
wheels, everything.
Wheels, all that.
Handle the power that's underneath you first.
Okay.
Get your chassis dialed for you, make that bike 100% yours, and then we can worry about everything else.
Awesome. So I would love to hear your guys' feedback. If you've had your bike stock versus revalved, what was your experience? Did you like it? Was it way better? Kind of leave that feedback, and that can help other riders out who maybe haven't decided to pull the trigger but are questioning or contemplating that. That's going to be really good, valuable feedback for those people. But TJ, again, thank you for coming out here. It's been a pleasure. This guy rocks. If you're in Utah or one of the surrounding states or whatever, you want to mail your suspension into TJ, he can take care of it for you. Even if you have, say, Race Tech Gold Valves, whatever, he can go in and fine tune and tweak any suspension that you have. So don't just think, oh, it's got somebody else's name on it, it can't go to him. But if you guys have questions or comments, though, we'd love to get those answered. So leave those in the comment section below. If you like this video and you want to see more great suspension videos like this, get subscribed to the Rocky Mountain YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and that way you're notified when we release videos like this one. I'm Chase, we'll see you on the trails.